Hey everyone, I hope you're all enjoying the event so far. My name is Rod O'Connor and I'm the Jack of all trades here at eOne Solutions. Thanks very much for coming into our sponsor session today. It's titled iPaaS Plus Expects More from Your Integration Platform Provider. I wanted to start out by talking about what exactly an iPaaS is, just in case you haven't heard the phrase before. To be honest, I've been doing this just over 25 years now, and I only learned the phrase about a year and a half ago. iPaaS stands for Integration Platform as a Service. Now, integration platforms have existed a lot longer than I've been working. Integration platforms allow two or more disparate systems to talk to one another. They come in many forms with varying levels of complexity and effectiveness. Now, the as a service part was added really since the world went to subscription billing for everything. So essentially an iPaaS is a platform that you subscribe to that allows all of the systems you use every day to talk to each other. Now, you might be wondering, how many systems do I use every day? A lot of us don't really think about it as we're kind of going about our day, but it turns out that the average business workers jumping between 9 and 10 solutions per day just to get their daily jobs done. So this could be, jumping over to my CRM to figure out open opportunities and going back to my ERP to look at items, jumping over to my field service to see who's doing what today. So it's really me just jumping around everything that I work with. We do always think about the ERP and the CRM when we think about business systems, but we don't always think about the other line of business applications that we're dealing with, like the field service system or the project management app or the support or customer service ticketing system, even the payroll solution. So how annoyed do you get when you're talking to a customer service agent and you need to make small talk while they switch their system over to the one that has the answer to the most recent question you asked, especially after you've already used up all of your small talk the first 3 times they had to change systems. Companies today, and honestly more and more often teams within companies, are going out and choosing single-purpose apps that work best for their needs. And accidental admins all over the place, many of whom don't have technical backgrounds, are finding themselves tasked with making it all work together. Ostensibly, that's where your iPaaS comes in. Given the shifts in technology over the past several years, today's admins are facing several challenges when it comes to making all of their applications work together. First, a lot of companies find that at least part of their infrastructure is still on-premise as they move more and more towards the cloud, but they have those legacy systems that they're still working with. This can lead to a number of security challenges as you try and provide external access to an on-premise solution while trying to ensure that only the applications that should have access get access to the data. This can be a real problem. Users today also expect all of their data to synchronize across all applications immediately. As soon as I save a customer in my ERP, the corresponding account in CRM and organization in my help desk application should be updated right away. As soon as the order is completed in my online store, it should be in my WMS right away so that I can ship it as early as this afternoon. Now, I already threw out that phrase, accidental admin, which is basically anybody who didn't start out administering their ERP, CRM, or other applications, but now they find themselves administering all of them. Now, for many customers, the person in charge of making all of these things work together never received any formal training in integration systems. They generally are not programmers, and they often didn't start out in IT. Meanwhile, many of the iPaaS offerings that are out there are really technical in nature, often requiring a programming background. Aside from the cost of hiring a new person with the correct skill set or a consultant to help out, the costs of the platforms themselves can be quite high, and some of the licensing can be really confusing to try and figure out up front, especially when it's based on consumption rather than on a set amount per month per year. It's based on a combination of things, almost like riding a taxi used to be like. And then finally, we need to factor in how iPaaS fits into the current market shift from on-premise ERP and CRM solutions to cloud-based options. Getting master data, open transactions, and especially that historical data from your old solution into your new one can be a real challenge. By now, you should be seeing why companies everywhere need an iPaaS solution. With the variety of solutions out there that all need to work together and the challenges the companies are facing to make that happen, it's important to have a reliable platform that will help you get the data to the users who need it, wherever they are working and whenever they need it. As I mentioned earlier, there's a number of companies out there today that are offering iPaaS, and I did just make finger quotes around that. But 201, they only fit into that first column on this slide, and even then, not even the whole column. We're the only company offering that last option there, virtual integration. And we'll dig into virtual integration in a bit. Under the integration category, we're absolutely able to help you move data from one application to another. I'll show more on that again in a slide or two. But virtual integration, which I am going to dig into, I promise, allows users to query data from any application in real time without having to switch out of the application they're choosing to work in. It's a real game changer when it comes to integrating. iPaaS Plus doesn't stop there either. We also have tools that will allow your users to quickly create reports that include data from multiple applications without needing any help from IT. And we talked a bit about migration on that last slide. If you're moving from any application to another, whether it's on-prem ERP to cloud ERP or one CRM to a different CRM, our iPaaS offering has everything you need to fully, correctly, and easily migrate your data. And as you can see from the slide, that's going to include my master data. That's going to include any opening balances I need to bring in, as well as historical data. And we do offer you the ability to massage that data before you move it. We're not doing a lift and shift type migration. So it's a very exciting offer as well if you happen to be in the midst of that activity. All right, now eOne's iPaaS suite is made up of two products. When you hear the word integration, you generally will think about moving the data from one spot to another, and that's where SmartConnect comes in. SmartConnect is our move the data tool, and with little to no code, administrators are able to build SmartConnect processes that keep all of your solutions in sync. Now to complement that, we've got Popdock. Popdock is a query tool that end users can use to ask questions of their data, no matter where that data is coming from. We call it our Share the Data tool because you can embed Popdock pretty much anywhere. As I mentioned, SmartConnect is the more traditional integration part of our iPaaS offering. SmartConnect allows you to physically move data from any application to any other application. While we do integrate with the entire Microsoft stack, we also integrate with several non-Microsoft products. This includes any app that has a REST API available, which is about 95% of them right now. Integrations can be run in real time, on a schedule, or triggered manually, whichever suits the needs of your integration. We even have an add-in for Excel where users can send directly from the workbook they are in to whatever system needs the data. So think about month-end journal entries, year-end journal entries, annual bonuses need to go to a payroll solution, commission calculations might need to go to both my CRM and my payroll solution, maybe even my accounting solution. So lots of these things are starting out in Excel and then need to end up in other systems. So that's where that Excel add-in comes in handy. While the data is being moved, you also have the ability to transform the data if you need to. We have several no-code solutions to common data transformation problems, as well as the ability to use code if you want something more complex, or frankly, if you just like to write code. And then finally, regardless of the target that you're sending data to, SmartConnect will always listen for any errors that occur and take note of those error messages. You can then automatically send those messages to your end users without writing any code. You can do that via Teams, Slack, Trello, or email. I'm not going to try and do a full demo of SmartConnect today, but let's just take a quick look. I want you to focus on simplicity and flexibility as I go through this. The first thing we need to do for the integration is choose our data source. As I said before, we have a choice of real-time, change, or bulk. And then any of our connectors could be the source. Next, we're going to choose the target. Again, any of our connectors could be a target here. In the case of this particular integration, we are choosing Business Central. Now, in the case of connectors like Business Central, where there might be multiple companies, we have two different ways to deal with multi-company integrations. The first is to choose specific companies to integrate into. Think of a chart of accounts import where you want all the accounts created in all the companies. You can also drive records to specific companies using JavaScript based on some type of business rule, like what territory the sale was in or what channel the product came from. In the case of Business Central, we can write to any publish page or REST endpoint. If this were CRM, it would be any entity. We also have connector-specific options, like the ability to include linked entities for Business Central so that the header and line can be processed together. Now that we've chosen a source and a target, it's time to map them to each other. Over here on the left are the target columns, and here on the right are the source columns. When there's a data mismatch, we have additional columns. Other than the calculation, which is code-based, additional columns are no-code solutions to common data problems. You have some that are going to be unique to the connector, like the OData lookup for Business Central, and others that are always available, like the date calculation. Next, let's talk about tasks. Tasks allow us to extend the integration process we're creating. With tasks, we can do things like call another integration or add a JavaScript to do something fun for us. For the purposes of this demo, I want to focus on these four right here. These are the tasks that would allow us to communicate with our end users, especially if something goes wrong with the integration. We can use a number of variables to tell users about the run, but the most important is run errors, which will send the user any error message received from the target. Now they're going to know that there's something to do. In cases where you'd like to review an error in SmartConnect, we do also have the error processing window over here on the left. In here, you can review the record, you can see the errors, you can change the data if you want to, and you can even rerun the integration if you need to. As I said earlier, Popdock is essentially a tool that allows people to ask questions of their data. If we drill into this simple sentence a little bit deeper, you start to learn where Popdock stands out from other reporting tools. First, Popdock is meant for the average user. Even most of the more advanced features have 0 lines of code associated with them, and they can be carried out by non-technical people. Also, Popdock is meant to allow people to ask questions on the fly. Let's take a quick look at what we mean by that. If you notice, this is Popdock embedded in Business Central. As you can see, the lists are fully interactive here. Users can move columns around, they can group on the fly and get subtotals, and they can quickly add and remove columns. Whenever I see Skippy skip like that, he's reading data he's reaching into my data source in real time to get that data. I can also use filters to define my question. If I switch to a date here, you'll see that I can do things like compare my date to another date field or to a time frame relative to today, or even compare it to fiscal periods. This is so that I can save my query as a favorite and quickly come back to it later. Every list in Popdock is also multi-company by default. If you have multiple companies, you can see here that I have both my US and European companies on the same list. I mentioned virtual integration earlier, so let's go take a look at some data coming from CRM. It's important to note here that these opportunities don't actually exist inside of Business Central, but without leaving Business Central, I'm able to query them in real time. And all that same ad hoc functionality I just showed you, that still applies here. Speaking of data from other systems, let's go take a look at a historical GP list that I have out there. Now, this list is combining historical Business Central data with historical GP data with ongoing Business Central data. This is all part of that migration thing I spoke about earlier. And again, all that ad hociness that we've talked about on every sample so far, that all still applies. Now, as you'll see in just a minute, I can actually embed these widgets anywhere within Business Central. But first I want to show you that it isn't just all about embedding widgets in Business Central. This is a widget embedded in CRM that is surfacing data from Business Central. Again, sort, group, filter, add or remove columns, all the ad hoc still applies. Okay, what we haven't talked about yet is details. So details allow you to get more information about the record you've selected in the main list. Although this detail is the invoice line that's coming from the same system, details could come from anywhere. Maybe this detail could have been the timesheet records from Timely, for example. We also haven't talked yet about actions. If I pop over to my Zendesk tab here, I can show you an action. This sample is using the Zendesk REST API to let me add comments to the ticket. Now, actions can trigger REST APIs like this, internet hyperlinks, Power Automate flows, or SmartConnect processes to get your data moving around. Using a widget in actions like this actually has saved eOne a ton of money on licensing. We have about 25 people who interact with our own Zendesk instance this way, saving us the Zendesk license fees for those 25 users. I thought that I'd take a moment to kind of go through a project that we did recently and show you how our iPaaS Plus offering came into play. So this customer came to us with this project where their customer service team had implemented Zendesk to manage customer support calls. Now, the company sells serialized products which come with a specific warranty period depending on the product. When their end customers were calling in, the customer service rep needed to be able to find the customer and then review the products that they've purchased in the past. They also needed the ability to add that product and its serial number to the ticket for record-keeping purposes. In some cases, the product also needed to be physically returned, meaning that an RMA needed to be created inside of Business Central. And then finally, that CSR sometimes needed to review invoices for the customer while they were on the phone. Now, if we were working with, a traditional iPaaS, maybe from one of our competitors, we would have been stuck with having to move all of that data around. We would have had to create some custom entities, definitely some fields in both solutions. Then we would have had to create those integrations, and then we would have had to set up all the error mitigation processes around those integrations. Now, there are some elements of this project where the data had to move. So using SmartConnect, we're keeping customers in sync with organizations, and we're copying any new contacts from Business Central into Zendesk as potential users. Also, we added a custom checkbox to Zendesk so that when the CSR checks the box, a webhook inside of Zendesk will send the ticket information through SmartConnect into Business Central, and then we get that RMA created. Now, as far as showing the CSRs what products the customer has bought, rather than go and customize Zendesk to store the products and the serial numbers and then build an integration to keep them in sync, we just used a Popdock widget. The widget has an action that allows the users to add the item and serial number to the ticket itself, and then that information actually goes with the ticket through SmartConnect to when that RMA gets created. So everything is nice, ticked and tied. We also added another widget inside of Zendesk that allows users to query invoice information from Business Central. I mean, honestly, that widget's pulling a lot of data from a few different places, but for today's purposes, that's the one that was important. And then finally, even though the customer didn't ask us for this, we were able to add a widget on the RMA window in Business Central so that the users could actually review the ticket information and they could go back through whatever conversations had happened. So this is the widget inside of Business Central, inside of Zendesk. I apologize. You can see I was able to search for a product and serial number. I'm able to go ahead and add those to the ticket. Now that checkbox created my return. I'm looking at my Zendesk ticket details, and here are all of the comments on that ticket. Now, had there been more than one comment, obviously I would be seeing more than one comment right now. So let's take a quick look at how some of this got created. First of all, the list of items that the customer had purchased was built using the Popdock query builder for Business Central. That's a feature that allows us to build table-level queries and deploy them directly to the Business Central tenant without writing any code. The query builder itself is a visual query tool with all of the features that you would expect. We can select any fields, we can add restrictions to those fields, and we can control our joins. We would then go through and do Popdock related things like, I don't know, set default fields, for example. In the background, Popdock is creating all the AL code necessary to add this query to your Popdock extension in Business Central. Now, you don't need to look at this if you don't want to, but the developers put it here for me to show off. So here we are. Next, let's take a look at how that widget got defined. The first choice we have to make when we're setting up a widget is where did the data come from, or where does the data come from? In this case, I want to get Zendesk ticket information. And I have set up a favorite, which defines all the columns and filters I need in place. Next, I need to tell Popdock which window in Business Central I want the widget to be on, whether I want it to be a fact box or a fast tab. Next, well, finally, I'm just going to go and create a restriction on the widget based on a field on the screen. In this case, I'm going to tie the ticket ID to the external document number. Now, the last step in all of this is to deploy my objects to my Business Central tenant. You can see that both the objects we just looked at are listed here, along with a couple of others. When I click the Publish button, Popdock will update the Popdock extension on my Business Central sandbox with all of those objects. Then I just promote that extension to production, and Bob's your uncle. Now, I could talk about SmartConnect and Popdock all day long and still not get to everything that we can do. And I do want to make sure that we leave time for some questions here at the end. Hopefully by now you've realized that eOne's iPaaS offering really has a lot more to offer than a traditional iPaaS. Not only is our licensing extremely reasonable and easy to understand, but our products are simple to use, we're flexible enough to meet all your needs, and gosh darn it, people love us. Again, I want to thank you all for coming to our session today. I really appreciate your time and attention. And before we go, are there any questions that I can answer at this time?